Hello and welcome back to Rolling with the Robsons. In this mini series of videos, we're going to talk about our time in France this year. In the first video, we're going to talk about our experience about where did we go to in France and why did we choose to go where we did. I think it's probably different for us. And one of the things we've had on Facebook comments is, what was it like going from the northeast down to France? Which is very different, I think, than some people who post online, which is about the southeast of France, or even the Midlands to France, or even maybe southern Yorkshire to France. It does make a bit of a difference if you're northeast. Now, imagine for some of the people who are watching who live in Scotland, it's probably different again. So we're going to talk about our experiences, mini set of videos about going to France. Where did we go to? Why did we go to those places? What was the whole experience like? And what sort of hints and tips we would give other people. So hopefully if you click the subscribe button below, you can get some of the hints and tips of what we thought France was like in our later videos. So today's video is mainly talking about where did we go to? Why did we go? Why did we go there? Or where did we decide to go to? I suppose the main thing really is where did we decide to go to? And then why did we choose that? Well, for us as a family of 5 with 3 children, we had to consider the fact that sitting in the car for hours and hours on end probably wasn't going to be practical, because then the children are going to get quite bored, frustrated, particularly with a toddler who was one a bit that actually slept in the car great, but as anybody might know, if you've got a screaming baby in the car, and driving the car itself can be a little bit tricky with the baby screaming, plus the caravan, it is a bit stressful. So we had to consider that. So we took into people's opinions what the journey was like down there. We looked on Google Maps, but I would say Google Maps isn't very accurate at all for given times of a caravan. And we thought about how we'd go to France and what we would do. So at this time last year, we sat down and said, right, we want to go to France. Where's the best place to go to? So I think tip number 1 for people is to make sure you do some research. Go and find out about where you can go, what the different parts of France are like. You if you go to the Norman France and in Normandy area and Brittany area, you could go to the Vendée, you could go to Paris, you could go to the Loire Valley we went to, you could go to the Dordogne, you could go further south. So you have to look at the different areas. And we kind of briefly looked at all of those options. And then our factor number 1 was, how far away is it to get from here in the northeast down to the place? And bearing in mind that we only had about 14 days in total, including journey time, for my wife to be off and before I went back to school. So it was thinking, well, okay, if we're going to drive from here down to Dover, we're probably talking for us, where we live, somewhere in the region of 7 hours to maybe 10 hours, depending on what the traffic was like. So that was a factor for us, and be a factor for a lot of people watching the video about where to go actually in France, depending on what time you've got. So it took us in the end about 7 a bit hours. It wasn't too bad. The traffic was reasonable to get down to Dover. So then I suppose it was, do we stay in Dover / Folkestone, or do we drive down over to France and stop overnight? Now, my parents in the past have stopped at like Ayres or service stations further down for a few hours, but then again, reading things online, I wasn't so sure. So as part of the whole experience of thinking about going to France, I would recommend you look on the Facebook group that I've put below, and we also looked on caravantalk.co.uk to give us some ideas of where to go. So after we thought about, do we want to stop on this side or do we want to stop on the other side, we decided that we'd stop in Folkestone / Dover at a place called Black Horse, which we'll talk about in another video and why we did that. We left here from up in the northeast about 4 o'clock-ish, and we got down to the campsite, caravan site, about, I think it was about 11 o'clock. So it was a fair trek, and we stopped once. Then it was thinking about, okay, if we're going to stop and then get the ferry early in the morning, which for us was cheaper, again, family of 5, it's thinking about the cost implications to go. It was, where can we get to? And again, it was thinking about the research that we'd read and looked on Facebook and looked into other people's opinions. And one of the things we found was that pretty much if you went down to just below the Loire River, then you were more likely, when we were going, which was the back end of August, to get better weather, which is important because we wanted it to be a good weather, but we didn't want it to be too bad and then the girls not like it and my wife not like it. So we looked around the Loire River, we looked at like slightly above there, below there, and a lot of people said about the place we did go, which is Parc de February. Amazing site. Bit expensive, but again, it was the first time we went. I didn't want the girls not liking it, and at the same time I didn't want my wife not liking it, because, you know, it was my idea, and then, you know, I didn't want her to kind of go, well, I don't want to go there again. So we stopped there. Amazing. We then decided, as part of this, because the first time we're going, again, bargaining and compromising here, to go to Disneyland Paris. Now, Disney sort of, Disneyland and even going like the Disneyland America does not fuss me at all. My wife would love to do that sort of thing, and my daughters will absolutely love to do that sort of thing. So, as dads do, and as a husband does, you have to kind of bow down to pressure a little bit. So we went to Disneyland as well, which is about 3.5 to 4 hours, I think, from where we were to the site we went to. And again, we'll review which site we went to and why we went there. Then from there, we went back up to Calais, got the ferry on either side, went to somewhere just above London, then drove back up. So I think factor one, like I'm saying, is probably the journey times. It took us somewhere in the region of about 8 hours to get from Calais to where we're stopping. Again, in France, you're limited to 56, or we were, due to the weight of the car and the weight of the caravan, 56 miles an hour, or 80 kilometres to get there. So we had to stop once for lunch, and then because I'd got up at like about 5 o'clock in the morning, I needed another stop and a coffee a couple hours away from where we were staying. So factor one is the journey time. Two, I suppose, for a lot of people, will be the cost. Now, one of the reasons for getting the caravan is that we have 3 children, and it was thinking about if we want to go abroad on the plane, we're probably talking 3.5, 4 grand with me, my job, meaning that I can only go during school holidays. So we factored that in and we looked at that, and we kind of, it was a bit expensive the first time around, but the second time around it should be a little bit cheaper because we're not going to Disneyland Paris, and we're also choosing a site which isn't quite as expensive. So think about the cost. You don't want to be paying the whole year and not be able to do things with the children or the family or your husband or your wife or your partner. You want it to be a good experience. So think about that as well. So thank you for watching. That was just a little bit of information about where we chose to go to and why from the northeast particularly. I think it is a different kind of ball game for people who live a bit closer to the ports. We'll also talk about in one of our future videos about why we chose to go via Calais, from Dover to Calais, and then we actually went back the same way. We're considering for 2019 what are the other options, but again, financially speaking, it seems to be better for us to go from Dover to Calais, and then Calais to Dover back, rather than the other options. So thanks for watching. Please click the subscribe button below and the little bell, and hopefully give us a thumbs up, and we will hopefully see you in the next few videos. Thank you.